Hi, I'm John Carlos, and I'm here with Eddie.
Eddie.
And it's mirrored on Zoom, so I have to learn to point that way. And I got Chucky here with me. We just did a part one video chronicling the Chucky franchise. We went nearly 2 hours, and if you watched all of that, God bless you.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
I wanted something to do to kill some time in the quarantine, and hot damn did I find a way to kill some time.
Oh,
So thank you, Eddie, for joining me.
no problem.
We talked about a little bit about the reboot and then went into Child's Play 1, 2, and 3. So let us dive right into the fourth one of my favorites,
Right.
Bride of Chucky.
Yes. Really, really happy actually that we're diving into this era.
My favorite era.
First off, well, we got Ronnie Yu as director now, working with his usual palette of blues and
Yeah.
purples and pinks. And he had already he did before Freddy versus Jason. This is what made them want to hire him for Freddy versus
Right.
Jason.
I think this is his first movie in America. I think he did like the Bride Who Wore White is the name of it.
Yes, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, and it's interesting because I remember hearing him in in-depth conversations discussing Freddy versus Jason about how he wanted to move in a direction where people were laughing at the violence rather than being affected by the violence. And I feel like that's exactly the route he took with this. I think that's kind of what he did. I don't think he's a. I don't know. I need to see The Bride Who Wore White or whatever it's called to know if this is his MO. Because it's surreal. It hits gore points for sure, and I love the character work that we get with half the cast.
Oh, Eddie's got some thoughts.
I got some claws, but but I did. I just thought about it about the laughter at the violence because when I didn't laugh at Tiffany's first kill, but I love her entrance. But I did laugh at Chucky's first kill in this movie when he kills Damien.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm. I couldn't help it. I was just sitting there going, "Ah, he's having fun." And, I did have a question. Yes.
And just side tangent, but just it's not even so much the kill for me. It's I
Mhm.
believe I'm gonna probably butcher the line, but it's he's still like dying, and Chucky's just like, "Hi, how you doing?"
He does that little. You like what you see?
Yeah, and then the whole scene proceeds while he's
Yeah.
still sitting on Damien. You know,
On a pillow.
you look
Yeah.
good. You know.
Thanks. Now, okay, we can. Oh,
Attention must be
Tiffany.
paid, right? To Miss
Gosh,
Tilly.
I mean, Jennifer Tilly, first entry in this franchise, and my God, I welcome her with open arms.
Like a tornado just swirling in and just.
But like yeah, with a strength and definite choices, but then like a quivering vulnerability underneath it that makes me. You need
Oh
somebody like
yeah.
her and a character written like that. Don Mancini put extra care into writing her. You can tell he was fascinated by her and wrote for Jennifer Tilly or for an actress like her who could juggle the humor with the humanity, because this is a case of a character this late in the franchise for me to get such a distinct picture of her. Tiffany Valentine, this like uh, 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 girl who follows her heart and has strict morals and kills people. Will kill anyone. She says, "I'll kill anybody, but I'll only have sex with someone if they have my heart." Something like that. And it's all the quoting of her mother,
Mm-hmm.
her all these old adages that her
Cooking
mother.
for the guy, but at least he could do is wash a dish. But like, I'll still
Yes.
murder you.
My mother always told me love was supposed to set you free. Been a prisoner of my love for you for a long time, Chucky. And she's got. It's like playing with noir, but she lives in that wonderful silver Winnebago, or it's got a different name if it's a big silver cylinder. I don't know what
Yeah, I don't
it's
know what it's
called
called.
though. But I adore her, and I totally sympathize with her. I love the one thing I love that Ronnie does is bring us into her experience when she finally finds out that Chucky didn't save the ring for her.
Yes.
was for Vivian Van Pelt. And she's there in the foreground, just going, and he's laughing in the background, and you know the track record. You know what their relationship has been.
Yes, that tells you everything.
Yes, it's been a pendulous, because they're so happy to see each other, and she's even the way she describes him, he'd go crazy if he'd not the man even looked at me. But then you just see, she says, "You haven't changed."
Yes,
Like,
and
fuck, this is what it's always been.
without getting too much into the later movies,
Yeah.
you see in this movie their relationship get good and then go bad, and then in Seed go good again and then get bad. And I mean, to me, that only complements. That's what it was like before all this. Like this pattern, even all the way up into Cult. Like with each given movie, you don't really know where they're gonna be at. And
no, but they could,
and that all starts with this one.
Yeah, but they could literally be anywhere and you'd believe it.
Yeah.
Like, they could be not speaking. They could be like fucking like rabbits. They could be fighting and throwing pots and pans at each other. Or they could just be talking, just shooting the shit. And you'd just be like, oh, okay, this is where they are right now. And it would always make sense.
And that solidified to me even before this movie happened. I just remember when you find out about the engagement ring and you realize that as much as she loved Chucky, she was not the priority to him that he was to her. And then when you get to Curse of Chucky, and we'll get to that in a bit, but that there is another woman in his life that he is fixated on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I totally buy how much of your attention is given to Tiffany, how much of your attention is given to this woman, and how much Tiffany was kind of a side piece to you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Because it lines up. I didn't see what happened in Cult or in Curse and go, oh, that doesn't match.
No. And also the fact
their relationship, it fits.
And also the fact that both of them are compelled to chase the ones who run away, which makes them both, in a weird way, accessible and kind of unformed. Like they're like adolescents still trying to like figure it out. And you know, these are problems that live beyond adolescence for a lot of people, myself included. But one thing that occurred to me, this was a case of like a rewatch where something occurred to me that never occurred to me before, and I wanted to know what you think. She does the chant, like she gets the doll, she kills the security guard. I love her, and all that, and Rob Zombie, and it's great. She assembles him, she sews him, we get the perfect, wonderful stitched together look of him. And then she does the incantation reading Voodoo for Dummies, which I love. And you get to hear her voice doing this incantation. We followed through 3 movies now. And he doesn't come back right away, but she puts him back in the doll. And it's never spelled out whether she could have brought him back and put him in somebody else's body, like if she could have put him in Damien's body or found someone. And I feel like for the first time this viewing, there was a reason she put him in the doll. And the only reason I can back this up is because when she discovers like that he didn't leave the ring for her and everything like that, she also shows him, I forget the exact chronology, but she shows him a crib that like a little makeshift crib she put underneath this table that she has in her trailer. And when she finds out that he hasn't changed, and she decides she's going to, you know, kind of lock him up and make him her property, she puts him in the crib and locks it.
And it's already got the lock on it.
It's already got the lock and the loop and everything, so it can't escape. And Tiffany has a lot of colors to her, but I never thought of her as someone who could have a baby and lock it up. I feel like that crosses a morality line with her.
And this is the first, it's just one of those things that just sort of entered my head, and then I got distracted. But now that I think about it now, I can't help but wonder, is she the kind of person that doesn't even think that it's that bad to lock it up? Like, if I ever have a kid, like, fuck off, little rugrat. Like, you know, now you can't jump out of the crib. You know, and space is limited, so I can slide you over here. And
maybe.
But you're right. She does have certain romanticized morals about men and women and behavior.
Yeah.
And for her to not romanticize being a parent.
Yeah, like she's always there. If she sees something wrong being committed by somebody, she's always the first to call it out with a moral high ground that for some reason I have no problem granting her. But the reason I bring it up is because for the first time it occurred to me, oh, she says you haven't changed. It's always been like this. I wonder if she put him in the doll deliberately just to give him a chance to fuck up. And
In
if he
case it
fucked
doesn't
up,
go right. If it does
she
go
can
right, let's find you a body. If it doesn't go right,
exactly.
interesting.
Because she
Interesting.
almost put him in without a thought, just kind of like, okay,
Well,
you
my brain
know.
always just went to like that's how the voodoo for this case works. You know, he was in the doll before. He needs to transfer it, but like the voodoo gets played a little fast and loose the more the franchise goes on.
Yeah, they really.
In fact,
I think this is the first point where he
this is
no
the turning
longer
point.
reveals. Yeah, he no longer reveals himself to the first person. No, the first
Yep,
person he reveals himself is no longer the only person he can inhabit their
correct.
body.
That's out the window now.
Yeah, that's completely gone, and he's
And
not
now
becoming
you
more
need an
human.
amulet.
Yeah,
Now you
and
need
he's
the
not
amulet that's
becoming
around
more
his neck.
human, and he's not
Yeah,
becoming more human as
yeah.
it progresses. He's already. Sometimes he feels pain, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes like what? Who knows? Um,
I wouldn't say the franchise has disregard for continuity because there's a
right.
lot of story continuity.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't go as far as to say it plays fast and loose with the rules, but it does get a little hazy around the edges
Yeah.
as you get through 4, 5, 6, 7. As far as he was the same doll in 2 as from 1 that was rebuilt. Then a little bit of his stuff gets dripped into the vat in 3. It's that same doll in 4. But in 5, in Seed of Chucky, it's just a movie doll that's like
Hmm.
plugged into stuff. So
Yeah.
what is it about reading that incantation that has anything to do with a movie doll? Well, whatever, it's Chucky. But like
Hmm.
really, if you want to look at it, why would this movie prop have anything to do with Chucky's soul aside from some vague voodoo idea of it's the same shape as him or something? And then by the
Sure.
time you get to cult, at some point he learned on the internet about a voodoo thing for splitting souls, and now we don't need the amulet and whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but the tone of the series going forward is such that you don't get all up your own butt about the rules. At least I don't. I feel like
No, I
there's
don't
there's a
either.
there's a fun and fancy free vibe where you're not we're not going to focus on that too much.
Also, you're going to have a better time if you just kind of roll with it.
Right.
Like
It's
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 not they're not so glaring inconsistencies that they kind of ruin the ride.
right.
It's something that if you're a willing participant, it's just going to give you more glorious things to focus on. Like Tiffany, I actually okay. So now we can get into my issues because I don't want to spend forever on this. Ironically, but no. Okay, so I don't want to make this about bashing Katherine Heigl.
Lord knows she's endured plenty of it.
Yeah, and she's dished out her share of it too. But I mean,
Sure.
I've also seen her in interviews be, a decent person or at least seem like one. You never know. But so we'll just talk about the character of Jade and devoid of that because there are plenty of things that Jade does that get under my skin that are varying levels of intensity. Like the first time she's arguing with Jesse, the robust young buck who lives across from Tiffany, who they're trying to be together. I mean, see, the whole storyline for that. This is one case where the talking heads for me don't really work. Like the John Ritter character, Chief Warren Kincaid, who's just trying to again impede the progress of the story, just kind of being a dick for dick's sake. And I love John Ritter. I just don't love him in this movie. I don't know why he's so possessive of Jade the way he is, and I don't want to.
Right. It's almost if there's like a deleted scene that maybe explained it.
Yeah, that's gross. That's just gross. That doesn't belong in this movie because this movie's an otherwise good time. But okay, the fact that when he first kind of Jesse first goes to the trailer to acquire the dolls, and then he goes to get Jade and sweep her off her feet and go get married together. When he tells her about the fact that he got the dolls from Tiffany, and she calls Tiffany a freak. She's like, "What has that freak gotten you into this time?" And Chucky and Tiffany are listening in the car, and he's kind of having a laugh at her expense, and Tiffany
Mhm.
just kind of looks at him and just, whatever. She keeps listening because it's like she's watching her stories. Like, oh, the young lovers, what's going on? What's happening in Jesse's life? The fact, because he's sweet face, but the fact that like she gets called a freak, and yet immediately, I think it's in the next moment, as they're kind of running off to the house to pack for Jade, Tiffany says, "Oh, isn't it romantic?" And I'm like, she called you a freak, and you can still kind of like root for this couple. I like it. This is why I'm team Tiffany and not team Jade. Jade assaults a police officer when granted, he is being a dick in her face and acting like, hey, I'm gonna, bend the rules. I'm gonna pretend you're breaking laws that you're not breaking. I have the right to stop you because I'm a cop and I have limitless power. I mean, yeah, he's being intolerable. Does that mean you start throwing punches at him in a public place where everybody can say, yeah, we saw this crazy white woman start assaulting this, this police officer who looked like he was having a good time. I don't know what she had up her ass.
There's never been a viewing of this movie where that didn't bother me. You go, that's a bad
Yeah. And then the fact that both she and Jesse as a couple bother me because once the whole divisive, like the murder spree beginning with Chucky and Tiffany doing it but nobody really knows, so Jesse and Jade suspect each other. They are more comfortable rather than talk about it in the van before they get married, after they get married, once they're in their honeymoon suite. They are more comfortable, each one of them, calling their gay best friend and going full disclosure with him than they are talking to each other, to the point where they get married in the tensest, most uncomfortable wedding ceremony I've seen in memory. I can't think of another wedding that I've watched play out with less passion, with less affection, and with less comfort even around
But
each
that
other. I'm like, why'd
discomfort
you get married?
and mistrust and fear is actually some of the best acting that they have in that scene is
Right.
on their faces.
But it makes me really dislike them as people because I'm like, bitches, you just got married. Like, you're still not comfortable talking to each other. Literally it takes your gay best friend doing a jump scare and getting in the van, telling you, I know you're both good people. And they're just kind of like, you know what? You're right. Ugh. And the reason I'm also talking about all of this because I have a point. I feel like for the first time watching this, like Don Mancini was telling us something about relationships and the way we operate in them. Because all throughout everything I just described, Chucky and Tiffany are only becoming closer. Chucky apologizes, which who knows how many times he's done that in the past. Tiffany challenges him not to just stab with his knife because it's they went out with slasher movies in the 80s. So she teaches him to improvise like Martha Stewart, her idol. And I share that with her. And and the fact that she's challenging him and it ends up working out. And then she just keeps becoming an artist. She does one of my favorite kills in the entire franchise, even though it's completely implausible. I don't
The honeymoon
care.
suite?
Yes! With the shards of glass falling and everything. And it's so simple. And even though it might not kill them quite in that way, I don't care.
No, it wouldn't. But yeah.
It's
The
a
staging of
feast
it,
for
the
the eyes.
fountain. Yeah.
Yes, it's explosive and it's glorious. And that's what makes him.
And it's 100% believable when he sees the blood and the water
Yes.
rush on the floor. And he's like, I love you. Like,
yes. And I'm rooting for them.
It within the warped sense of liking them, that would be impressive for me if I was Chucky. That would make me go goo goo gaga. It is a cool ass moment for her.
Yeah.
Just her evil eyebrows when she throws it, when you see her in the mirror.
Or even when she watches him explode the car a ways back when she's in the van, there's this great expression on the animatronic where she's just watching with this this gleam in her eye and this wicked grin, and I love it. I'm so here for it. But the reason why I think there's like a greater kind of like narrative about, or not narrative, a greater maybe metaphor, tangible metaphor for the way we conduct ourselves in relationships, is because I noticed that it all goes wrong when Jesse and Jade start to actually seem to be on the same team. It's almost like he's making, like Don Mancini is making some statement about, remember you're on the same side, and nothing will penetrate like your union. The second you let something get between you, the second you forget that you're on the same side and you start turning against each other like you're on opposite teams, that's when you go down. Because Jesse and Jade, who have been kind of antithetical or dreamy-eyed and not at all realistic the whole movie, see a weakness mutually when Chucky won't do the dishes, and he tells Tiffany hey, those dishes aren't going to do themselves, and that's off of Jesse. And then Jade says the least he can do is do a dish. And then they turn against each other, and Jesse and Jade use this opportunity to ultimately win the movie. And Chucky and Tiffany, Chucky ends up shot up in the grave, and Tiffany ends up charred and pregnant.
I'm glad I had you on for this, because I've always, appreciated that turning point when that scene in the God, is it a trailer? It's an RV, like a camper, whatever.
It's a motorhome, yeah.
But when they deceived them into doing that, I always just thought, like, that's crafty. That's a way that you use it, to appeal to her sensibilities and his sensibilities, yada yada yada. But I never thought about how in the story they've always been talking to the gay best friend and not trusting each other, and it's only when they come together do they, like, there is something metaphorically to be said about trusting your partner and yada yada that I think Don Mancini may have been trying to put in there that I never thought about until right now. So thank you for putting that in my head.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. On a more surfacey level, I have not some favorite lines from Chucky this one, because he kind of, even though, I love everything he says, but it's more facial expressions in the RV, and they're concurrent with each other. Like, one happens right after the other in succession. The first one is when he says, when she says, let me tell you something, honey, nothing, plastic still, it can't take the place of a big hunk of wood. And he's all, and then right after that, he's like, what would Martha Stewart say? She says, fuck Martha Stewart. And he's like, just this, like, look at the shock. And I love watching the dolls because they're both pretty gruesome. I think Tiffany gets more beautiful in Seed. In this one,
definitely.
I think she looks kind of old, and she looks kind of ugly. But I'm
her
here
head
for
shape,
it.
it's like a pointier chin.
Like,
the second one, the eyes are a little bigger and wider. The hair is obviously different, but like it's a different head shape and eye placement in Seed.
Yeah, the hair's teased more in this one, and also, like, she looks like she's got like those marks that you get in your face when you sleep on a pillow the wrong way and a crease, like, like she looks like she's got like just little indentations in her skin and stuff. I think they're supposed to be dimples, but they don't really look like it. And but one thing I love is that they're both kind of scary looking. She's the most scary looking, actually, right before she throws that champagne bottle into the mirror, when she's just pops her head up like a gremlin. She's got this expression on her face, and her eye makeup is, I don't know if it's especially dark or if her hair's just more teased, but she looks manic and scary. So they're both kind of scary. But then when they're scared of stuff, or when they're shocked by stuff, because they're so shocking, I like that dichotomy. Or that contradiction. I lose my vocabulary as the hours progress. But aside from that, that was what I got from this last time. Also, I really love, I already loved the end sequence anyway, but I've seen the commentaries so much that I know that there's a take that might still exist somewhere that they did not use, because Jennifer Tilly said the wrong line. But it was when she said, she was supposed to say, "We belong dead." And they were in the session together, Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly. And they were so engrossed in what they were doing, everything that preceded that moment, where she made the mistake and said, "We should be dead." And both of them were crying. And Don Mancini got close to crying too. And he was just so moved by these very, very capable actors. Again, another Oscar nominee with Jennifer Tilly, Bolts Over Broadway. And very, very, very deserved nomination. They're playing the reality of what, as broad as you can go and as outlandish as this movie with the direction it goes in, it still can come back down to something where two people are breaking each other's hearts,
Mm-hmm.
and where the actors find that actor thing, that gratification of doing real work with each other that might have just been a happy accident. I'm sure they weren't trying to cry in a recording booth,
Right.
but it just happened. And he was so upset he couldn't use it because it was supposed to, the line,
Right.
"We Belong Dead" was supposed to, bookend
Bride of Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know
So
they had,
that's,
because I know they definitely connected, because the only part of the commentary I remember was, I think, at the end of the movie when they talked about how, like, oh, we had a really good time. We should work it together again, like on a real movie. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you mean, but this is a real movie to me.
yeah, me too.
There isn't a lot to pick apart. Like you gave me a few of your cons, but I mean, it's first of all, after 3 movies where we were dealing with Andy and the fear of, like, no one believing you about this toy doll. We now go into a new era,
Hmm.
and we're going to start playing with genre, and that from here forward each movie is radically different.
Hmm.
But to go with Bonnie and Clyde or Badlands or Natural Born Killers, but to
Hmm.
really play with something different, good choices. I think Tiffany as a character is phenomenal. I think Jennifer Tilly is a firecracker.
Hmm.
Like you said, she can break your heart. What is the line, like? Why can't I ever get with the real good guys?
Yeah.
The fact that she can play both of those believably,
Yeah.
superb.
And you
And
feel
I
it,
just,
like
I
you
just,
feel bad for her.
and I personally I like the choice of Stitchy Chucky going forward. Like, I like that era. I dig that look. I think the montage to Rob Zombie is rad. Um, this is one of my favorites. I mean, you'll find out where on the list it is, but this was also my entry point, so I'll have an affinity for that. If I
Yeah.
remember anything later that I come back to, but I fucking love this one.
Yeah. No, ranking these is really, really hard because it's not a case of, there have been other franchises that I've ranked where it's just clear like what's going to be at the bottom and what and then it's just about like sorting through it. I love most of these, and that's why I own them all and I watch them. and but a big part of loving them is looking at them again in this particular format, like with a critical eye, to try and decide, well, what do I love about them, and how much of the movie do I get that. That's what it ends up being about, because there's something to love in every single one of them, and something to enjoy, and also something to get that is relatable. There's no, as far as the original run of the franchise, there is no inaccessible chapter for me. Like bar none, this is the inaccessible one. There's something to relate to in every single one of them, some more than others, and that's how I had to decide. The next one is
Yes.
I don't understand the world. Because I feel like the rhetoric that surrounds Seed of Chucky is that it's bad, or that it was a detour for the franchise, or that the fact that it didn't fully embrace its horror kind of genre was a minus. This is a case of a movie where I wonder, how did this get made? Like, and I'm so happy.
I adore this movie.
I know, me too. It kind of defies any kind of sensibility. It is meta. It is, I mean, all those buzzwords. It is, I guess, a satire. But I mean, again, I mentioned camp earlier and what it means to me, and how I felt like the seeds were planted in the first movie. And maybe people just misunderstand what that is. But there is so much to glom onto in this story that is a heightened reality.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is, again, a new addition to the cast, Billy Boyd as Shitface, as we meet him or her, and
Glenn/Glenda.
Glenn/Glenda. And I've heard people subsequently discuss the problematic situation there of making a potentially trans character, the villain, and if people see it that way, I'm not going to tell them not to see it that way. But for me, because so much of this is heightened reality, camp, and satire, and self-conscious meta movie,
Mhm.
movie within a movie within a movie, I feel like the elements that might be problematic for some people of Glenn's question throughout the movie of who he is, I don't feel like Don Mancini displays them in, and I'm not trans, so I can't speak to this. I can only say my take is that it doesn't seem mean-spirited. It doesn't seem to make fun of people who might actually be asking these questions, because of Billy Boyd's performance and because of the way Glenn or Glenda Glenn and Glenda are written. I feel like it, again, walks this incredible line between like those campy 1960s psychological, like the therapist is going to unlock a whole other identity in this person, and there's going to be pinwheels, and there's going to be, this like psychosexual mania that I felt like was really celebrated in the 1960s. That I think a lot of people would watch and say, "Oh, that's a campy movie." Even Ed Wood, like Glenn or Glenda
Mhm.
in the 50s. That's not a campy movie in terms of like frivolity. It's campy because it's surreal and because somebody invested their heart and soul and made the best movie they could, and that's not what the mainstream deems marketable or I guess run-of-the-mill. That's camp to me. That's true. Camp has something to it. And Glenn's soft little spirit with, again, the Hitchcock with the fly
Mhm.
that he wouldn't even swat, invites me in. And I love that he's dreaming about who his parents are or who her parents are. And finds out, basically discerns I'm Japanese because it says made in Japan on my wrist. Escapes. Is made to like confront a fear of this rat in a cage, and then softens almost immediately and just pets it and says hello. And everything about Billy Boyd's performance just endears me to his character. Billy Boyd, the actor, as Glenn and Glenda, asking his parents, why do you kill? It's a real question and it has weight to it. And Tiffany and Chucky react the way parents in that situation, if they were killers, their kid found out, but still felt safe enough around them because you're my parents, but why do you kill? And they're like, it's a hobby. It relaxes us. I don't know. It's gold. It's like domestic gold. And because I loved what Tiffany brought out in Chucky in Bride, and what she continues to bring out in him as they're more raging against each other in the name of their son, it's still not everything that they fight over is because they both want to raise their son the best way they can.
They think, yeah.
Yeah. And that's very human.
I mean, it's also, there's a very either in life or in sitcoms about the mom versus the dad, and that tug of war over how the kid gets raised. I mean, there's so much about this movie. It's a satire of domesticity and parenthood, while also being like a kind of fabulous romp on Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like of starting with Bride forward, there's always varying degrees of sprinkling of some sort of quote unquote LGBTQ reference point, be it the gay best friend in Bride or Glenn's identity issues / John Waters being present / just a sort of cleaner cut fabulousness to Tiffany
And
And
Jennifer Tilly's extravagant kind of
yeah,
mommy dearest lifestyle.
whereas the references change. I mean, in the next movie, it's or not the next. No, it's in the last one in Cult, where like
Yeah.
the orderly just mentions like his husband.
Yeah.
There's always something. But in this one,
Hmm.
I feel like this one. I mean, if you don't read the room with John Waters being in the movie, um,
And he's good.
oh, he's great.
Oh,
He's so great. But when the franchise starts having different tones and different stories, and I feel like different vibes. Like Bride lost some people, and still to this day, I know people who just like the first one, two, three, and some of them like Curse because it's a little more serious horror.
yes.
But they didn't dig the vibe and the humor. To me, it pushed the boundaries a bit more of what a Chucky movie is, and I
Hmm.
think Seed pushes it even further to a point that not everyone wants to go this far.
Hmm.
Lord knows plenty of people, even if there's people who think it's bad, but there's also those that just, when I get down to the nitty gritty with them, they just don't want to go there. They need it to be, they're okay with here, but
Yeah.
Britney Spears in the car and Glenda, and you know,
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
however, there's a lot that, I mean, again, as someone who loves it, I not only do I like the fact that it is a domestic drama satire,
Hmm.
I, I don't know how to say this because I am not an addict and I've not suffered the way others do, but I find it interesting that they treat in the movie their
Yes.
their urge to kill the way
As
an
an addiction.
addict would,
Like any other drug.
and Chucky's willingness, his ability to lie, to
Yeah.
continue doing it, and Tiffany's
Yeah.
attempt to really try to treat, and her tears when she's talking about it was just a little slip, like
Yeah. Or her phone
I
call, her
yeah.
outreach call.
Now again, just as someone, I love that phone call scene. Just as someone who, as a cis hetero dude, I can't speak to uh, the Glenda Ed Wood referenced Glenn storyline. I also can't speak to any experiences as to whether the treatment of their addiction as a source of humor is insensitive or not. But I do think that the movie doesn't have its head in the wrong place about it.
No. Yeah.
Um, but Lord knows her phone call scene is hilarious. Um, but this movie has one of my favorite moments in it of any of the movies.
What
And
was
again,
that?
a lot of these movies have very specific turning points where each movie kind of tends to feature a landmark moment that matters in the saga or in Chucky's timeline. My favorite part of this movie, and I'll lead up to it, is Chucky spent 3 movies specifically trying to get into Andy's body.
I was going to ask you about
I
this.
don't want to be this doll.
Yeah.
Fourth one is we're on a road trip, but again, we're trying to get out of these bodies. It's still always a case of his threat, his menace is of him trying to leave and become you.
Right.
The turning point for me, and it's a great scene and it's a turning point, is they've got Jennifer Tilly and Redman tied up, and everyone's bickering,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Chucky's already been to this point where like she wants him to change, and you're not gonna be an addict, and you're gonna give it up, and now all of a sudden I'm a father, and I'm trying to teach my kid this, but I don't want to be a father, and then he explodes, as if anyone who's watching this hasn't already seen the movie. But he tells him to shut up. Maybe all this isn't worth it. I'm Chucky the killer doll, and I dig it.
Yeah.
And for the first time, like he owns that this is what he is. And for a while at this point in the franchise, he will be operating in 100% ownership now that I am a doll and my new purpose is vengeance or whatever. Because at the end of this,
Mhm.
he's sending his parts to the Tilly family, and in the next movies, so for the next several movies, we're sending dolls places. It is no longer about escaping this and being trapped in it.
Mhm.
It's a whole new motive point,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
I'm glad they never did that with like part 2, but we really got to it.
yeah, absolutely. And I know it was a point of contention for a lot of people because they were like that. No, that's the formula. I have it written down here, like, for John Carlos, how do you feel about Chucky abandoning his foremost objective to become human?
We got that
So,
objective for 3/4 movies. So it's not
yeah.
like they're pulling out the rug from under us early on. And it's an organic thing that we built to.
Yeah, and also Don
If you,
Mancini in the commentary brought up something that, because he was even having a problem kind of finishing it in his mind, like, why would he do this? I want him to do it, but I don't want him to just do it because, you know, I want him to. I have to write it in such a way, and it came out in such simplicity, where Tiffany, it just came from him writing Tiffany's point of view, saying like, but I want to be Jennifer Tilly. I want to be a movie star. And he says, and I don't want to be your chauffeur. Totally, of course. It makes total sense. Of course he doesn't want to, because then he'll have to be subservient to her. She'll be the one with all the fame and all the attention and everything like that. She'll get everything she wants. And what is he going to do? He's going to drive her around? He's Chucky, the killer doll. So I back you up there. Yeah.
And for Don Mancini to, I think it's Mancini, right? But
yeah, he says Mancini. Yeah.
This is the first one that he directed. And
yes,
God bless him for during the I'm Chucky the Killer Doll, and I dig it. The fact that the camera like cranes up and then the lightning strikes. Oh, it's a power moment that's awesome. It's probably my favorite scene, maybe in the whole franchise. Just because
there are there are a lot of moments.
I like that ownership, and personally, I also I know people who go, I like the Chucky coming after the kid, and that's to me what it is. But I really gravitate towards the later movies where it's not necessarily about that anymore, and this is where it starts.
Also, there were some interesting things as far as like we were talking about, like the weird sexual question in the air of this movie. It's not just sexual either. It's anatomical, because some time ago, like maybe 5 years ago, I had already seen this movie so many times. I saw it in the theater with my sister. We had a great time, and I was like, I just kept watching it. I think I just kept renting it for a while, and then I finally bought it, and I just kept watching it, and I didn't even understand why. It just kept drawing me. But finally, about 5 years ago, I noticed that here Glenn predominantly as Glenn has this habit of peeing his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when we reveal his crotch, there's nothing there. So I'm like, well, what is Glenn pissing out of? So I wondered about that. And then also just like in terms of like the anatomical question, like the fact that it's still kind of a blurred line when Tiffany first comes back, and then they go into Barbie mode, and she gets her back screwed open. She has just inhabited the doll body. He opens up the back of her, and there's no servos or anything like that, no machinery, no mechanics in the back of her. It's an organic, like, ribs and blood, and so much so that it shocks him. Like, it's a key point in this sequence, and they have to kill him, because otherwise, you know, he might tell somebody, or, you know, they'll be found out. So the blurred lines continue, and I like that. And maybe that's what this whole movie is like for me, is that maybe there were people who went through with their pens and papers in their mind, and we're just kind of like, yeah, but what about this? What about? And I was just kind of like, it's taking me somewhere. It's taking me to some strange amorphous dreamlike place that I'm going to willingly. But there are also things that pay off. I love the fact that one of the calls that Tiffany makes when she's making her amends is to Ruth Bailey, and she asks the widow of Robert Bailey. Robert Bailey is Officer Bailey. He's
from Bride,
the first kill we saw in Bride, and I'm like, oh my God, look, continuity. This is what happens when one person gets to keep writing all the things. And then I have some lines that I love. They're not even just Chucky's. There are a lot of lines that I fucking love in this movie. I love when Tiffany confronts Jennifer Tilly because she's selling herself to advance her career. I mean, you know, whoring herself basically for the role of the Virgin Mary. And she says, where's your self-respect? You know what my mother used to say about dirty girls? You can always smell it on girls who sell it. Oh, that's gold. And it sounds like something her mother would say, and I don't even know her mother. I love they're executing Martha Stewart this morning. Said with such a kind of bedside manner. Mm-hmm. Oh, did you know? And then I love Bound is on cable. Gina Gershon is fingering me. These are, and then, okay, so those are all hilarious. And then I wrote down, sometimes I feel like a girl. Sometimes I feel like a boy. Can I be both? And Tiffany, with no joke at all, just, well, some people. And Chucky's not having it because there's an antithesis there. And it doesn't seem unreasonable that Chucky would take that stance. I mean, not unreasonable for that character to have that kind of an immediate no, because he doesn't want anything to change at this point. Plus, I think it would develop some kind of empathy in him, and I don't think that's not a muscle he wants to flex. He's
not
Chucky
only
the Killer
in general,
Dog.
but specifically in this movie. I mean, even when he's in denial of like when they're looking at Glenn's crotch, and it just that stupid male bravado of like, well, no, he just hasn't had his growth spurt yet. Like,
that's my boy.
Yeah.
And then I felt like there was a perfect kind of, again, maybe like 45-second window where one line and another shouldn't be in the same movie, or one moment and the other shouldn't be in the same movie, and they are. It's right after Tiffany slaps Glenda's face to get Glenn back, with the mother-daughter stuff. Again, melodrama. But Glenn snaps out of it, looks at his reflection in Glenda's garb, is shocked. Tiffany and Chucky are shocked. They're just waiting for this moment to pass. And he looks at them and he says, Mom? Dad? And tears fall from his eyes, and he asks, what am I? This isn't a movie about killer dolls and a Hollywood satire and Jennifer Tilly getting a supernatural pregnancy. So that happens. Then moments later, when she's giving birth and screaming her head off, she gives birth to a boy and a girl. And what is Chucky's response? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
One could argue whether they all fit together, but honestly, I mean, and again, as you know, as officially left-leaning as I am, I also have to acknowledge there's still quite a bit I don't know and can speak to. But as far as trans issues and just a day-to-day struggle, but for my simple mind, like the "what am I" line just always kills me. Because even though it's coming out of a doll, and I don't know if that's considered disrespectful or not, but just the fact that we even have in 2005, 2004,
I think it was, I don't remember particularly.
Gender identity or anatomy defining your gender or not, like it's just an interesting territory to go to. And as far as what the movie's doing within its scenes, the desired dramatic effect coming out of a rubber animatronic doll really works on me.
Yeah,
clearly it works on you.
Absolutely.
But his performance is great too.
Yeah, and that's what sells it, and also the fact that, again, from Don Mancini, and again, this is coming from a cisgender homosexual male. Just my conclusion that I draw is it doesn't feel like I'm being preached to. I don't feel like anybody is treading around any kind of issues, and yet I don't feel like anybody is exploiting them or even diving in to explore them seriously. It's merely inclusive. It's merely a component of the storytelling, and it's because it all plays in satire, because unfortunately we have a history of cinema back in the 20th century where to be different was to be exploited. The thing that identified, and basically in all show business, it wasn't just Hollywood, but I mean, like basically like whatever your discerning features were, whatever characteristics you embodied that set you apart, people would attribute it to religion, race, sex, sexual preference, what have you, being differently abled, whatever can make you different.
Right, and drag cross-dressing a lot of these if there's a character, it's usually featured as either some sort of thing that's easy to write for as a villain, or as some sort of comedic beat. And even though this movie is still very funny, it's not simply played for laughs in this. It actually gets to be one character's struggle. The degree of how well that struggle is written, I can't speak on. But the fact that it's even a struggle and not just a joke, even though we are going to have some Psycho reference fun with it. Yeah.
I think the thing that I walk away from the most, and then we can move on, is just Don Mancini's mindfulness. I don't feel like I don't ever wince during this movie. I don't ever go, ooh, maybe you shouldn't be saying that.
There might be other people that are.
And maybe there are, and they're right. I'm just saying, I think there's an argument to be made for his mindfulness and for him endowing every one of these characters with equal humanity and equal surreal levels.
Well, yeah.
As well as real levels.
Well, also, Glenda, when Glenda comes out in the dress and burns the lady, and you could start to worry that, are we going to make this character the villain, which is a very 20th century thing to do. But the fact that in the end, no, Chucky he is the villain. That we don't go down this path with Glenn. Glenn and Glenda both end up as two human children, and Glenda has a very specific intention, even as a human child. But the fact that it's not even just the fact that Glenn's the one that gets the axe and does it and stuff, but just the fact that no, we're not going to go down that road. Chucky will be the bad guy by the time the story ends. Although I do like the chip off the old block, with the to me, Chucky getting all chopped up is a hell of an ad. I prefer that as his death for this movie. Than I do for Bride getting shot. He's got a great last line in Bride. But man, I love him. I love him getting hacked up by Glenn.
Yeah, and then the aftermath. We get to deal again. Oh, and I didn't get to talk about this with the first movie, but in Child's Play, the fact that the first kill we get to watch Chucky enact is Aunt Maggie, right?
Yeah.
We get to see the aftermath. We get to see Karen Barkley go into her kitchen and weep and look at the window that she saw her friend fall, that she didn't see her friend, but she's being told her friend fell out of. She's just crying, and there's a pause in that movie for her to go, "Oh, Maggie," and she has to collect herself and kind of shake her head and get back to when Detective Mikey starts asking her questions about the footprints and everything. Again, seed planted. Like, we took time. This wasn't a frivolous kill. We weren't cheering for the killer doll. And even though we can subsequently for other kills in other movies, because the movies change, after Chucky's kill, there's the weeping, Glenn's weeping, and Jennifer Tilly's comforting of him as it just slowly pans away. I do want to say, like, I'd love in the series if at some point we get to find out what happened to, and maybe even see again, Glenn or Glenda. I particularly want to see Glenda, the human girl.
Right. And I hope she has a luscious head of curly red hair.
Yeah. I want to see her.
Well, if we're heading, okay, so there's a lot. Let's just go on to the next movie, I guess, because there's a line in it let me officially say this. We've now moved on from the two movies that are where it's Chucky's story and Chucky's
family.
Right. We're now moving on to, it's now Nika's struggle. We had Andy's struggle. We basically had Chucky's struggle, and now we're going to the Nika struggle. He has a line during the big reveal in the last act, where he's like, there's been a lot of people. There's the Barclays and
the Kincaids.
And he goes, and the Tillys. Because after the end of 5, I expected that we would get to see Tiffany and Glenda. And we don't. We go somewhere else. And many years have passed. The implication that I got is what he was doing with the Kincaids, what he was attempting to do with Andy. I don't think he lumps in the Tillys as some other thing. I think there is some story we don't see. My implication that I got watching that movie was that like the Tillys were
Were
victims.
the kids?
Right.
Oh,
Well,
I always thought it was like Meg Tilly,
no.
like her parents or
No,
something.
it's Jennifer and Glenn and Glenda are the Tillys.
Oh no, I
So
never thought of that.
in my head, if we're going to keep moving forward with the next two movies and we're never going to even see them, my head canon was they might be dead.
Yeah, they might be.
But then we see that Tiffany's still around. Well, Jennifer, Tilly,
Yeah.
Tiffany's still around. And we still haven't seen the kids. So I don't know. Hypothetically, my whole thing was when they said that they're going to keep going with the Chucky series and the fact that we've already brought Andy and Kyle back and that these later movies are really not afraid to like reach into their own continuity.
Yeah.
To me, if you start doing a couple episodes where these like teenage or 20-something-year-old redheads show up, I'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah. It's on.
especially at Glenn, because I feel like Glenn goes down a heroic path and maybe Glenn doesn't. I mean, Glenda doesn't. But anyway, that's just a thing for me. But I love the fact that you mentioned the Tillys.
Yeah, I do too. I had to look up because I didn't know offhand who the Kincaids were. Because I don't know if Chief Kincaid gets called Chief Kincaid at all in Bride of Chucky because it's John Ritter. But that's how he's billed in IMDb. That's how I found out that was him. I have to say this time because for the longest time I thought the Kincaids. I just kind of thought, oh, that must be the people who adopted Andy. And I'm like, oh no, they're the Simpsons. And I just thought, oh, too bad he couldn't say the Simpsons because too many people would be like, Chucky killed the Simpsons.
I always thought it was the two kids, like, in the RV. Like, once they got married, they were the Kincaids.
Mm-hmm.
But John Ritter makes more sense.
Yeah. Because also her name wouldn't be the Kincaid if she married Jesse.
Right. Well, I didn't know if Jesse's last name was Kincaid. I don't remember whose last names were in that.
No, because Chief Kincaid,
right.
John Ritter, her uncle. Exactly. That would be sick.
Maybe that's why he's so obsessed with her.
So, Nika.
Let me. This one is also one of my favorites, and I don't know if anyone out there who came to this franchise maybe later or kind of went into Curse of Chucky knowing everything there is to know about it, but there was a period leading up to Curse where we just knew Don Mancini was involved with a new Child's Play movie. And even the words reboot were being tossed around. And I'm like, well, that's a bummer. Yeah. But it sounded like we had 5 movies that ended. And at least now that we're rebooting it, it's going to be Don Mancini doing it. And all we knew was that he was going back to more serious horror roots is all we kept hearing. Well, never committing to the word remake. They never called it a sequel. And it did not get a theatrical release. It went to DVD and Blu-ray, and it also, I think, it went day and date to Netflix as the DVD and Blu-ray. So I remember diving right in, although it was the quote unquote like theatrical cut and not the unrated cut on Netflix. So Tracy and I watched it I think the day it dropped, and we were very nervous because we weren't in the mood for a reboot, and all the concept art, but the disc art and the photos, like it's a different Chucky face.
Yes.
But we're like, let's do it because Don Mancini. And the movie does this thing where for a little bit of time, you could believe it's a reboot remake. It doesn't necessarily feel like a sequel.
Because you don't know.
One, they're going back to, we don't see Chucky killing people until a certain point. Or not even just killing people, but just his face. We do see some little walking in the backgrounds, but they do that coy thing that I thought was kind of silly to do for a 7th movie, but it's a reboot. But why are we playing mysterious here? But at one point, I think 20 or 30 minutes in, they're looking at like a family like footage.
Oh, the home movies, yeah.
Yes, and you do see Brad Dourif. Even at that point on first viewing, I hadn't put it together yet. I thought, that's a cool cameo. Or is that a reference? Wait, what's going on? Because he's got the hair. But for me, and now when you watch it a second time, you're like, well, duh, it's as clear as day what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I was still like in doubt as to what's going on here. Again, you're constantly told we're getting a reboot. So the fact that we do a flashback. And
Yeah.
well, no, actually, I'm screwing it up. Here's where I lost my shit. We're in the attic, and she's
Yeah.
picking away, and all of a sudden we see a stitch under there. I
Yes.
freaked out. I freaked out because now we are 100% committing that you've been watching a part 6 this whole time. So not only did the stitches come out, and I'm like, oh my God, and that kind of explains, first of all, they did redesign him a bit, but that look, he looks more like Bryden Scene that he does once they've taken that off. I already like the movie a lot, but that reveal carries me through a lot of love for the movie. And then the fact that we get this, everyone's seen the movie, so we know Nika's in a wheelchair. The fact that this family is tied to his history, and we get a flashback, and the fact that the flashback ties into like him leaving the basement, and the police arrive, and we cut to footage from the first movie of him running. I threw my arms up in the air again. I freaked out, but then it's so clever the fact that this movie, in the flashback, reveals that he stabbed her mom while she was still in her stomach.
Yeah.
So that Chucky is just as much of a part of Nika's life and her plight as she is to him for his, bullshit vengeance reasons. But to bring a character in the 7th film into a franchise and still have her matter to the universe and have her be that tied in.
Yeah.
I can't. Or the 6th movie. I can't even. I freaking love this.
I do too. It felt like a graduation of sorts for Don Mancini, because I remember as I was watching it, I was like, it felt like Seed of Chucky was made for me. This feels like it was made for everybody. Like he really wanted to kind of, it's like the difference with directors. You can tell them kind of swing in one direction from another. Like sometimes like one installment is the one that's the people pleaser, and then the next one is for me. You know what I mean? Felt like Seed of Chucky
started.
Yeah, he started with like for me, because also it was later in the franchise. Like it wasn't like his first movie. It was his first movie that was number 5 in a franchise. So what haven't we done yet? And then the response was the response it was. So he knew people were craving, and he was very conscious of it. He actually, Don Mancini reads he says way more than he should about Chucky online, and the response and what people are like kind of thirsting for than he probably should. And so I hope he's watching this. Hi, Don. We think you're great.
Yeah. And I still haven't forgotten after Seed where he talked about maybe doing a Chucky musical. And if you want the pendulum to swing the other way again, I'm down.
Oh,
man.
Even just a musical episode. Like everybody's done them. Why not you?
Honestly, this franchise could go like Chucky Goes Hawaiian, and I'd still be down.
Yeah, I'd be down. I would, because Don Mancini's going to take us there. There's going to be a reason. But okay, so but on the heels of what you were saying, like even from the beginning of just like the weird toy piano score, like that felt like a new era. And the design of this like strange gothic thing, I didn't realize before how strongly it seemed to be kind of mirroring or paying homage to whatever happened to Baby Jane, just in terms of like a tale of 2 sisters. One is wheelchair bound. There's this dilapidated house that looks like it might have once been great. They have differing opinions about like selling the house, and they're too different, so there's never going to be any peace between the 2 of them, even though it seems like there might be a chance. Like it just, even down to the phone on the first floor has its own little shelf on the wall. It's kind of like a little painted nook, and that was evocative to me of Baby Jane. There's like a little table that's like half a table into the wall. Looks like the phone has its own pedestal. And I was like, that's very Baby Jane. And so is everything else I'm starting to realize, except for the elevator. That's Child's Play 1.
Yeah, exactly.
But even the cinematography of just the opening sequence, just the spiraling around or spinning around Chucky as night turns to day. The fact that I liked Nika almost immediately because when she answers the door and deals with the it's not a UPS. I think they created like their own messenger service for the franchise now. But
and
because
it's
it was
Fee
the same
from Orphan Black, and I mean, like,
right.
yeah.
And I don't know why, but Fiona Dourif went on record on the commentary saying she hates that scene. I don't know why. Maybe it's because she's trying to flirt, and I don't know why she hates it. But I love it.
I love it. The thing that well, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just love it because immediately, like, it's got that weird echo of that, and it sucks to compare it because of this, but it reminded me of the guy in the wheelchair in Friday the 13th Part 2, who the second you find out the girl's into him, and he's got a chance to get laid, like, yeah, go buddy! And the first thing I think when he gets killed in Friday the 13th Part 2, or even when I know he's about to be killed, is, oh no, he was such a nice guy and he was gonna get laid. With it was a similar thing with Nika, like, Nika, he's cute, he's into you, come on, like, make this happen. Don't listen to your mother. Mother's a fucking cunt. I don't know what her
that's why I
problem
hate that scene.
Really?
No, not the whole scene, but like if I don't know if this is why Fiona Dourif, but I hate what her mom says immediately after.
I don't hate the scene, but I do
Correct.
have a strong dislike for
I
her
have
mother.
feelings of hate in the scene because of her mom.
Yeah. That said, when we find out what happened to her mother and what she went through,
sure,
it makes me think like maybe she's trying to discourage her from getting out. And because here the first thing we see her doing is like looking at like images online to go around the world and visit places she's never seen before, and all her mom wants to do is make her a tuna melt and watch Real Housewives. So I feel like there's kind of a weird payoff there, like a red I don't know what the word for it, like a you get to see what she went through with the traumatic event that she went through, and you're just kind of like, oh, maybe that's why, maybe she was a shut-in. She never stopped painting those sunflowers that were all yellow around her in that flashback. So she obviously hadn't gotten over it. So yeah, she's frightened of it. But I love Danielle Bisutti as Barb, the sister. And I shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, on paper, it seems like that's that's a character you shouldn't love, and I adore her.
I can't help it just because I like her. Between this and Insidious Chapter 2.
Don't you dare! Yes! I recognized her immediately when I saw Insidious 2, yeah.
I feel like she could play the most villainous, and I'm still gonna be like, but you're so good, and I'm a huge fan.
Also, maybe just the fact that they put her in, I mean, she's drawn out like a cord, but she has a point of view. I don't agree with it, but I see where she's coming from. There is a desperateness to it because she's barely scraping by with her family and everything like that. I understand why she wants to sell the house and why she's jealous because Nika always got the attention from their mother, it seems. And she sells it. She does it in a personal, really specific way when all she does is just say, Mom was always worried about you, you know? It's an aside. It's almost a throwaway line, but Danielle Bisutti's performance pushes it to the forefront. I also think there's some weird kind of, between her black pajamas and her black hair and her wet lips and her eyeshadow and everything, for most of the movie, I get a strong kind of weird Delia meets Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice mashup from her. And I never really...
And you are here for it.
I am here for it. It's equal parts like bitch, yet strange and unusual. Like, because those are weird pajamas. Like, I'm here for them, but they don't look comfortable. They look cold, and the house always looks cold. I love the green rain, like the fact that the sky kind of like washes everything in this weird, uncomfortable green. The chili situation, I love. It feels so Hitchcockian the way they do that Russian roulette bird's eye shot of all the chili bowls.
Oh yeah.
Who will it be? And it's not even related to Chucky, and I'm still going, oh shit. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, what am I watching? Because this is great.
And it's building genuine suspense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it still doesn't. It's, even though Chucky's the one who poured it, it's really letting it play out. It's really playing those Hitchcockian games of like, there's a gun under the table, nobody knows about it, but it's gonna go off, and you know it's there, so you're just waiting for it to go off. I love that. The whole thing about completion anxiety being introduced, tying Andy back into all of this. Because, the first time I started suspecting this was not a reboot and that it was a sequel was when they saw the Chucky doll and someone said, those were really big in the 80s. And I was like, they were in this universe?
And then Nika starts doing the research.
And she sees like Andy Barclay and everything.
Oh, even like I think the military academy incident is like in a Google search, or in a police report or something.
She and Don Mancini actually had a running joke that like maybe they should hit us over the head with it even more, and she should like be like typing on her computer and then just kind of do a take to the camera and go, Andy Barclay. And I'm glad they didn't, but I'm glad I know that they wanted to. But I mean,
the completion anxiety is.
But the fact that she also psychologically breaks Chucky down. I mean, and undoes him to the point where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you slow." And again, I'm not rooting for him, but I know she just waved the red flag in front of the bull, and I know he's gonna say something to that effect. I get it. I like it. The second he's saying it, I'm just like, yeah, you're gonna kill her slow.
And he has some witticisms in the movie, but I also really respond to just the anger and the menace in this one. It's nice to have that back while still having, some Chucky-ness. But besides the scene you just described, which is probably one of my favorites in this movie, just something as simple as him under the blanket with the little girl. And Chucky, I'm scared. And we get that, you fucking should be. And to just look at a girl and fucking say that's fucked up. But I mean, that's another. I don't think we get that in Seed. We don't get that Chucky in Seed.
No, the malice.
There's a new focus. Again, because Seed now puts him on a path of I no longer need to do that. I don't need to possess somebody.
Yeah.
Well, what now? You know what? Vengeance is now. And the movie's step one. Tillies are fresh. So I'm going to mail the little hand to the Tilly party. But this is the first movie we really get to see that unfold.
Right.
And I remember even thinking as this was sort of happening towards the third act, why this family not like, after all the things with Andy, I'm surprised you wouldn't go after Andy. But to really, they believably let me believe, let's say believably twice. But they really get me to the point where like, no, even though I had the Barclays, this has always been a problem for me. How this kind of started.
Maybe they were just closer in radius, like easier to get a hold of.
It's true. Well, yeah, and I love that the I don't like that it's called like the uncut red. To me, like it should just be the definitive version, but that we do get. Oh no, he does go after Andy. I'm like, okay, good, because I feel like.
He did because of Nika.
Oh, absolutely.
Like again with that, like being wheeled by him in court and going like, I'm still alive, you motherfucker. You didn't get me. I'm still alive. I'm just like, okay, he knows he can't break into prison. It's hard for a doll to get into prison, but
right.
He did a little check in his mind where he's like, you know what? I am gonna fucking go after Andy Barclay. I'm gonna show her. And the
reveal that at this point, Tiffany is the one mailing him. So to me, just the reveal that, okay, so she survived the Tillies, but also that, okay, you guys are back on. Like, of course you're back on. Like after Seed, of course the pendulum swung back this way.
Yeah.
Because
she probably didn't talk to him for a few days or something, and then maybe he did something really sweet for her, like killed somebody who always bugged her, and so of course she's back. And she's like back as his henchman, like mailing him places.
And there's no kind of sweet face. There's no I want to be a movie star. There is the glee.
You don't get kind of like the glam. We'll talk about this with Cult, but you do kind of get like a Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany facade
Mhm.
because of the spike heels. And was she wearing fishnets? I feel like she was.
I don't
If
remember.
not,
I
they
feel
at
it was
least
all
had a
from the
pattern
chest
on
up.
them. Okay. No, because they start on her shoes and she takes a
Oh,
step
that's
and they
right.
pan up.
That's right.
And so she's wearing like a mini skirt and it looks like black leather or something, like that, some synthetic material. So she feels very, very Tiffany, bride of Chucky Tiffany, as a human. But the only other thing that kind of like my caught on my sleeve, and I was like, yeah, what does that mean? Because I remembered it from Cult also, the imagery of snow after she kills Chucky, Nika. She's inside. There's no skylight broken over her. She's in the elevator, and snow falls on her. And I was so confused. I thought it was some kind of symbology Don Mancini wanted to work into, because I remember it happens in a kill in Cult also. I was like, oh, he likes snow. But what does it mean? And I even went to meaningfullife.com to look up the symbology of snow. And I found a definition. It doesn't really make any sense. And here's why. I listened to the commentary for Curse of Chucky. It's in Curse of Chucky, it's stuffing. It's Chucky stuffing
Oh.
falling on her. And I was like, because he's such a human to me, because there's
Right.
blood and scarring, I don't imagine stuffing.
And again,
So,
we play fast
like,
and loose a bit with when he's got human stuff in him and when he's a doll.
and it so looked like snow and not like stuffing that I just didn't get it. But I feel like a fool because I wrote like a paragraph like going, oh, snow is a channel of energy, a divine voice speaking to us. I just kept writing. Basically, it's like God speaking to us, but like in a gentle way. That's what snow is supposed to symbolize. And I was like, so is it like her trying to be shown her lot in life because this is her life now, fighting Chucky? And no, it was just supposed to be stuffing, falling from after exploding everywhere, I guess. But I love seeing when we get to Andy's place. Well, I love seeing that he goes to little Alice's grandma's got a I don't know if she's strangled, but she's suffocated. And he's basically doing the new spell, not to put himself in her, but to what's the word I'm looking for? Like that, like divide himself, or just kind of like implant a new Chucky.
Right, because in the next movie they established that you can inhabit multiple dolls, and that Alice was inhabited, and it didn't take well.
It didn't work out because some
work.
people try to fight back against a little girl. Little girl can't fight back.
Right.
And
which is really sad because I remember Alice
yeah.
being such a major, not like MacGuffin, but like a major anchor to this movie. And it wasn't as simple as just writing her off in the sequel, but they wrote her out with. When you find out what happened, you're like, Nika's heart drops, and to a certain degree, mine does too, because she mattered.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what was happening with her at the end of that movie. At the end of
and also because Alice is, when she's hiding and nobody knows, which I think for the last half hour we don't know where she is.
Correct.
And we don't know if she's been killed. We don't know that she's playing hide and seek until we see on the nanny cam. That said, I also just want to say before we move on, I don't like what's his name, the husband, the father. And I just wrote, any man who's more comfortable duct taping a woman to her wheelchair than calling the cops is a bad guy.
Truth.
I'm never on his side anyway. Even when he gets the upper hand because his wife is cheating on him, I'm like, but a nanny can't, you knew. Yeah. If you knew, then just divorce her. Oh my God, like you're such a shit.
But on the bright side, the nanny cam reveal like plays into the movie.
The Chucky reveal,
yeah, it's great.
Which and I'm not criticizing it as like a writing standpoint, but as a character, not my favorite. I kept looking for a heavy, and I was like, it's not Barb. I'm team Barb in the marriage. I'm team Barb all the way.
Yeah.
Whatever her husband's name is, he can go. I'm glad he gets his mouth chopped off. That brings us.
Before we move on, I just want to say that kind of like what you're saying, but Seed was a nice directorial debut, but to me, this is the one where when you see a filmmaker kind of come into their own,
Hmm.
just from granted, he's not the set designer, but you know, a director and producers hire a set designer, you hire costume designers, you have meetings, you approve of everything. These are the directions we're going in, and all the choices that he has, and everything that he's approved, and every aerial shot of the floor to the shadows. We are getting if we had the road picture movie and the domestic satire movie, like this is the big spooky old house movie.
Yeah.
And almost in a weird way, like those melodramatic, uh, a lot of the British ones, even like Dark Shadows, the show, you know, where there's the bickering
Hmm.
family in the mansion and the deceit and the distrust from the wife and the
Yeah,
nanny.
it's almost
So
farcical. Yeah.
yeah, I really dig. This is a very confidently directed movie with a lot of style, a lot of hitch. I didn't even talk about this in the last one, but Seed to me was the precursor to this. The opening scene of Seed, where it's done in one take.
Mm-hmm.
It's very crafty. It's craftier than
Yeah.
the rest of the movie. It's also moodier and makes more bolder choices. Uh, you know, their rope with its long take. I mean, there's a history of movies, the long takes, and you can see kind of where the cuts are in
Yeah.
Seed, but just the intention of it. I
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
how we get from that to this and the choices
Hmm.
this movie makes as far as style, as far as tone.
Yeah.
Um,
Very intentional.
I adore the way this movie looks and feels, and I think and again, when you get to cult, completely
Hmm.
different kind, but also very intentional, smart choices as far as lighting and set design and the what those colors achieve in cult.
Yeah.
Um, just great. So yeah,
Oh, and on
cult.
top of that, also the interpersonal works for me. Like Nika finding out like the fact that Chucky was the reason she was made this way.
Yeah.
And even Barb find like when Barb finds out that he might take her baby, it might take Alice away from her. I'm like, oh shit! Like you're playing like really dirty pool. And Barb, I don't. Barb is kind of a bitch, but I don't know if she deserves that. And even watching the nanny when she and Nika are both watching Alice sleep, and you know she's got two people in her corner, and she just said something that never really gets built on, but it must be Alice kind of building on the discord between her parents, or I mean picking up on it. The nanny just says like, she's been so sad lately. I don't care what this doll is, as long as it makes her happy, something like that. And I'm just like, wow, you're a good nanny. Like again, the interpersonal relationships, these people caring about each other, where they do, and me believing it, and me being kind of bummed when people I don't necessarily agree with everything they do get kicked off. Like I feel bad for Barb when I'm scared as hell when she's peeling the things off of
Uh-huh.
Chucky. Aside from the fanboy and me going, yeah,
Right, but I'm also afraid she's gonna get bit.
yeah, I'm terrified. And also just like, because also her face registers fear so well. Like she's got those big eyes, and they're too damn close together. I just, but I'm not like, even when she's wandering, I'm like, oh my God, she's still alive. Poor Barb. She's never going to get a chance to be a good sister to Nika, you know. Like I think about those things, and even to the point where Nika, even though she's giggling and I love it, I just did an impression of it when she's getting wheeled out of the courtroom.
Mhm.
There's also a sad part of me that's like, oh my God, she's going to get locked up. I don't want Nika to be locked up. She was looking at pictures of the world when we met her. She had big dreams. She wanted to go other places, and now this is kind of her life. Um, and then even to the end, the tease, Andy's bureau or whatever, his shelf with photos of him and his mom, and I'm like, and he's calling her, and I'm like, he's talking to his mom. No, maybe she's not in the loony bin anymore. Maybe
Right.
she's not under psychiatric,
Maybe enough time has
evaluation
passed.
anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, and they still have a relationship. And thank God he gets to see her as an adult, and she's calling him on his birthday, and there's a picture of Kyle there, and there's
Yep.
the military academy. It's like, oh, we're paying homage to everything that within this franchise that already exists, and saying, yeah, all that happened, and now what? which brings us to
And well, before we get to Colt, I just want to say one
yes,
little thing, one little
yeah,
tiny nitpick when it comes to when you start to deviate just vaguely a bit from continuity. We've talked about like the voodoo stuff doesn't always line up, whatever.
yeah.
One little thing. Did I lose you?
Hold
Oh,
on.
hello.
There I go. It's just my battery. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
I'm plugging in. Go on.
One of the little tiny things is in the opening of Child's Play 1
Yeah.
when Charles is fleeing what we now find is Nika's mom's. When he was down in the basement, he was saying that how he's going to go pick up
Her kids.
right. He
Yeah.
was going to go pick them up. Then there was someone else that took them off. The police show up. In Child's Play 1, when he is running from the police, there's a guy in a car waiting for him, and he takes off. He's like, Eddie! And he's mad.
Yeah.
He hunts down Eddie for ditching him.
Yeah.
That almost, to me, that I always imagined that was his partner in crime and that they were fleeing a crime. So as much as I got excited this connected Child's Play 1, what the hell, who the hell's Eddie and why is he there now? Again, you have to do the headcanon work, but one could argue that Charles E. Ray at this exact moment, maybe he didn't have a car. And he's like, hey, Eddie, I need to go pick up these kids from the park. Can we meet up around the corner? You give me a ride? And because he's not running that far.
Yeah.
But this is the BS that like goobs and fans have to do to justify things. And I have to now justify that Eddie was his ride to go pick up her kids. Because I can't drive myself. Maybe his car.
Or maybe he was just going to use her car. Maybe he stole her car, but then he had to get out of there, didn't have time, didn't have the keys on him or something, had to run out of there in a hurry. Eddie and him were going to do some heist anyway. Maybe that's fresh where he came from. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. So I'm going to
I said maybe.
Moving along to Colts because I'd like to keep this one under 2 hours.
Okay.
So yeah, I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, the first shot of the movie is just this big tower, which is an echo of the original movie poster, the tower that Aunt Maggie falls from. Immediately evocative of that, and I'm just kind of like, I know, and I'm just like, I'm in a Chucky movie. Good. And
did you feel within the first few minutes that you were being cradled into, and I don't mean this in a bad, the best example of like fan service territory, where like, do you want callbacks to this? Do you like seeing this character again? Do you want us to go there? Like,
but not just that, also like making it contemporizing the fan service points, because we move into the first dialogue that's exchanged as an argument over the Second Amendment, which I mean it's always been a hot topic, but it's a particularly hot topic in recent years. When
he's got his reasons.
Yeah, exactly. But also when statistics are like, where they are, you understand where his date's coming from. She's not saying they're like, I just hate guns. I mean, no, she's got a justifiable reason. Also knowing, because she looked him up, that you're hoarding guns. Maybe I don't want to date you. But it's definitely a reward for fandom, and it's definite, but it's also definitely fresh. It's not feel
just a reward for fandom.
No, even down to the look, the production design, the fact that we go from this dark Gothic haunted house, which in no way feels like kind of like the dark Gothic abandoned factory from the beginning of 3, or the dark carnival at the end of 3. It's sterile. Just kind of bleak and Gothic, and now we're in a sterile white, aseptic, almost just network of hallways, and just to the point where even the people seem to almost kind of blend into the neutrality of the walls, which I feel is really, really effective when you're shooting something that's supposed to take place in a sanitarium or a mental hospital, whatever you want to call it.
Because the staff and the inmates, I think the staff are in white and the inmates are gray tones, but like there's no
gray or even muted earth tones. But yes, very, very, very.
And then red,
desaturated, and then the glow. The only color is the glow of red whenever it's introduced, whether it's blood, whether it's the shoes, whether it's Tiffany, and Chucky himself.
Yes,
the doll itself is like incandescent against this like white canvas, I'm so down for that, because again, it's just Don Mancini continuing to challenge himself to create visual interest with and while this and make something feel like it's part of a franchise, where at the same time, like this is the next chapter in the saga, this is the white chapter, you know,
Right.
upon which there is like some red splattered. And I love that Nika is still a good person, that we get when she's kind of feeling out Carlos, her nurse, like to see like, is he a nice person? Is he going to be my friend? He even says to her, "I'm not going to be your friend." I think just because he does feel an affinity for her and wants to keep her at an arm's length. I like that when she finds the woman who thinks that she's invisible, she listens to her so intently and so patiently, and just kind of like is just kind of there to be kind and still be the best version of herself she can be in her present circumstances. That said, I love that when she meets little multiple Malcolm, that they almost immediately fuck, because I remember being like, yeah.
Yeah.
We at this point, we don't know whether she believes she's crazy and believes that everything she happened, you know, like whether she's really believes that, or whether she's just, again, like with Andy in his second movie, we didn't know whether he had conditioned himself to like just kind of be like, okay, well, just play nice, because they have to believe that I believe I'm crazy, otherwise they'll never let me go. I have to give the illusion of progress with my mental limitations or whatever. So I love that. I talked about the colors popping. Oh, I love that we find out with the video that Andy, while he's eating Fruit Loops, that Andy wants to meet Nika.
Yes.
Because he sees in her a kindred spirit, somebody else. The way she knew who Andy Barkley was and immediately kind of identified what he must represent to Chucky, I think Andy did the same thing with
That
Nika
was
when he read
huge,
about her.
because they dropped that in like halfway through the movie, and it instantly tells a whole huge chunk of a story that up to that point you didn't know had occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, again, homages, like, because you mentioned Hitchcock and Seed, but also one thing I love that Mancini did with the opening scene of Seed is like also a kind of wink and a nod to Halloween's opening sequence, which is supposedly supposed to take place in one
Or Touch of
continuous
Evil, or
yeah.
there's a
And then
lot. Snake
here,
Eyes, yeah.
yeah, and then here he's playing with split screen, which he himself has dubbed his tip of the hat to De Palma. And I think he does it really well, because I mean, he does it once when in a high tension moment, and it employs it in such an effective way, where Nika's watching Malcolm fall into the grave, and then the little Chucky doll slowly, with the bright colors rising out of the snowy grave. And then again in the moment, which I actually found out wasn't in the original script. As soon as the news broke that Andy and Tiffany were going to be in the same movie, apparently Don Mancini was online, and people were going like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to see Andy meet Tiffany, interact with her." And he was like, "Oh shit, I've got Tiffany and Andy in the same movie. They never interact. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do?" And he wrote this one. He said this is the only movie he did this with. Wrote it as he went, and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it. And I think you feel it when you watch it. But he wrote that scene, had Andy actually sit in the back seat for Jennifer Tilly while she was recording her lines, so they could time it. And he just paid attention to her pacing and tried to do that while he was on the phone in his side of the scene. But the split screen conversation between Andy and Tiffany, where she's teasing him, she even plays with the continuity question mark for some people, and he's just like, I don't remember if he says Tiffany or he says, "Who is this?" She's like, "Tiffany, Jennifer." I don't know. Even I lose track sometimes.
No, that's great. And she goes to visit Nika, and she's like, "Don't you look just like?" She's like, "Yeah, I get that.
You look exactly like Jennifer Tilly." And the fact that on the commentary, which I don't think I had listened to before today, he talked about dressing her differently, trying to give her a more sophisticated thing. He wanted Tiffany to grow too. He also
Hmm.
wanted to give her an homage to Hitchcock, make her a kind of Tippi Hedren with the blonde hair
Yes, the
swept
way
up
it's
in
up.
like a
Yeah.
French twist with a curl coming down. And I also love the way it works because it seems like Tiffany has embraced the Jennifer Tilly lifestyle finally. Like even her coat, this lush kind of like luxurious looking red with black fur lined, I think. Thing she's wearing. She just looks. She looks like she's grown. She looks like she does. She does, and I like that. Even though I liked seeing my Tiffany be my Tiffany at the
Hmm.
end of Curse, I liked seeing her in Cult. Snow comes back. It's
Yeah.
there because he likes snow.
And yeah, and he also, Chucky likes to, or not Chucky because it's Tiffany and Bride, but we sure like to
Yeah,
throw something up at a window above someone and have the shards come
yeah.
down.
And yet,
I was almost going to be upset that I'm like, this is so redundant, but it's also very beautifully shot in
and
the
there is a
aftermath with
different
the
element
snow.
introduced: the paralysis,
Yeah,
then the consciousness, the having to
the
look up at
aware
shards. Yeah,
and know it's
that
coming.
that element, and the fact that you see the killer doll and actually have it interact with you a little bit to the point where he's making jokes.
Hmm.
It's different than the doll hiding. One of you sees the doll, the other one sees the doll, then the moment happens. It's paced differently. It just got a different tone. And also, oh, I like the fact that I didn't like, I think her name's Claire, that character. Immediately when she's introduced, she's pushing back against Nika. I don't like her. She just seems, but then she realizes the doll's real the second she realizes the doll's real and
Hmm.
alive and has been performing these murders. Um, and that the second she can actually be of some use to Nika is when she gets dragged away and paralyzed by the worst therapist I think that we've seen.
Maybe one of the most despicable villains we've seen in this franchise besides Chucky, to
Dr.
the
Foley.
point
Yeah.
where Chucky even acknowledges, like, Jesus, like I thought I'm bad, but you're like, I feel like I should. Doesn't he say like I should be taking notes?
He says, I had two of the lines. I said, the first time because he cuts in on
Yeah.
Dr. Foley's action twice. The first time he's just like, I'm actually a little envious. And the second time is my favorite when he says, like, I don't know whether to kill him or just take notes. And I am laughing so hard.
One of the grandest, I think, despicable characters in this whole series, but also it was nice to have that Chucky back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked how serious Curse was, but I mean, this has a nice balance to me. If you're looking for balance of straight-faced horror, stylish horror, and also some of the humor that we've come to expect, especially once
Hmm.
we have a room full of Chuckies with the short hair, like this sort of welcome to the club mentality, and then the one with like
Yeah.
the one that came out dirty and he's got his hair and just like remember how excited he is and he's
Yes,
stabbing. Oh my god!
yes. And that's one thing Don Mancini talked about was he didn't know right off the bat how Chucky would interact with himself. And
Mhm.
he tried it a few different ways and he just kept being dissatisfied. And then finally he decided, you know what, they're brothers. They get each other. And they know they need each other to kind of like meet a common goal. So of course they're gonna get along and they're gonna encourage each other. They're gonna actually be courteous to each other. It's just like, look at my hair. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, dude. Yeah, you kill him real good.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just
See,
a second ago they were fighting over who was gonna get to kill Andy. Um,
the movie functions really well for the first like hour or so on its own. Just as far as Nika and what's happening with Chucky in the hospital, and I know that they did like a like a you do like a press release when you're making a movie, and like it was like a log line like Nika's in the hospital and there's a Chucky doll. Also, Andy's on his way for a showdown, but will Tiffany get? So I knew going in that like Tiffany, Andy, Chucky, Nika, this is all happening, right?
mhm.
But I did not know. Like the first hour is a good movie, but that movie explodes in its third act.
Yeah,
I mean, as
yeah.
far as the humor with the other Chuckies, but also
Hmm.
giving us showdowns and Tiffany's and Andy and in the one with the gun in it. I mean, uh, I almost it could have not exploded, and I still would have been satisfied with the the degree, the temperament that the first two acts gave me.
Hmm.
Um, it almost like to the degree like Cabin in the Woods. third act explodes. This
Yeah.
third act delivers, both on
Yeah.
its own story and in its fan serviciness.
I mean, down to the big reveal with Dr. Foley, the fact, I mean, first there's the reveal that he's been hypnotizing Nika
Yeah.
into believing that she is sick. Like he's basically, he's the reason she's so kind of lucid about accepting the fact, we find out the fact that she did this and that she was pathologically jealous of her sister, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then to have the weird physical assault angle on it, and then to have her conscious for another session with him, and the red shoes being introduced, and the weird, again, another red pop, and it's not even against a white background, and they're still, I can't get them out of my memory. And and the fact that they're not really heels, they're wedges, which
You're talking about when he gets his face smashed in?
yeah, and
Yeah.
they're vinyl, and they're weird. It's just so surreal. And so I'm right there with Nika when she's just rolling her eyes as he's kissing her feet and shit. I'm just like, oh God, where's Chucky? Like, how much more of this am I gonna have to endure? And then Chucky shows up and ends up like doing something I never thought was gonna end up happening. Which is basically like allowing her, and I mean, God, talk about fan service, allowing the daughter of Brad Dourif, who is a great actress in her own right, become inhabited by the spirit of her father's character he's been playing for three decades now, and to nail it so well, to be so, and for me to be fascinated. I remember the first time I saw it, I just leaned in probably
Same
like
here.
this, and I was just like, oh my God, this can't be happening.
Her posture.
It's too good. Her posture, the fact that she's like grabbing her.
Yeah, like, yeah. But even the way her hair, well, first of all, her hair and the coat, I mean, the silhouette is Child's Play 1. Like, it's,
yeah. And the fact that she's also, we don't really know what happened to Nika. So at one point, I think it's, is it Andy who says, he's just like, Nika! And she just says, Nika's taking a nap. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean she's still somewhere in there?
Right.
Like, being John Malkovich style, just kind of watching?
And if she tries to fight back, does she end up like Alice? Or, yeah.
Exactly. And
but her performance,
so I love the question mark there.
You could almost close your eyes and be fooled just because the cadence is so spot on.
She nails the laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, and her posture, the way she's just got her hands in her pockets. We never see Brad Dourif do that, but we can. This is the thing. This is what a good like character study yields.
The closest we get is like, I think at the like the little picnic in the park when he's just got the sunglasses in the one of my favorite things about this ending we're talking about is this was the thing that made this really different. I feel like it's the first time that truly a movie ends where Chucky wins.
Yeah.
Like Nika, our hero, loses. Chucky comes out completely on top. And I think that's the first for this, and a very interesting way to end it. And then I remember the first time I saw that movie, I thought of that. And I realized technically you could argue that in Curse, Chucky wins too, in that like Nika ends up locked up. But I mean, this is a movie where he comes out on top.
Yeah. And, but because we didn't even mention Andy burning the Chucky head, the severed Chucky head.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover.
There is so much, and again, we could literally fill a 2-hour podcast just talking about this movie.
On this one movie,
could.
Because it's like the Avengers of Chucky movies, where we're going to pull. Or actually, a very good example is Fast and the Furious, where we're pulling some. The fifth one pulls in some characters from 2, and that dude you like from 4, and that girl, and then we have like our Blender movie, and the fact that we get Kyle to show up and Tiffany, and I mean, but the fact that it's not just the sum of its fan service parts, the fact that within this franchise for the last 2 movies, I don't like Nika just because she's Brad Dourif's daughter. She's genuinely great.
Yeah, she is.
and I can just sort of endear myself to the franchise a little bit more because I know that this is becoming a family affair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
Don Mancini has
we're
consistently.
not coasting on it being a family affair.
No,
And she doesn't get to just be in it and then doesn't earn her stay there. Like, she shows up to work.
Do you know that, I mean, of course it was Brad's idea. He asked Don Mancini initially, like, I think Fiona should be in one of these. And she originally auditioned for Barb in Curse.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Don Mancini said she did a really, really good job. But the more he thought of it, the more he was like, because he wanted to bring her back. And because he felt like she would be a good Barb. But he's like, but I think I already have I want to see her do Nika. I don't know. There's something I like about that. He auditioned her for it. And the way he put it was, there isn't a lot of really, really strong actresses who were beautiful and good. But she was the only one who he believed lived her life in that wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she got the role. And I mean,
that's not, agree with that completely.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because it's the first thing that, the first identifier that I see as, if it's an obstacle, that hot guy doesn't, in the beginning of her movie, that hot guy doesn't see it as an obstacle. Go for it, jump on it. He sees you. That's awesome. And then her mother uses it to cut her down, and I buy every single bit of it, and that's why I love her almost instantly, and why I continue to love her, and why I hope she gets to come back as Nika in some of the episodes of the series, or maybe even Triumph. I don't know. I don't know what I want to see.
I don't know if you follow her on Instagram, but I mean, she's posted photos of being at the Chucky the series offices. And she's mentioned and she's been with Don Mancini there. I mean, I know that there is kind of a family now, but even beyond that, I'm like, why else would she be there if not because she's in it?
Right. Well, I don't mean Fiona Dourif. I mean, because obviously Charles Lee Ray has to be there.
Oh, you mean Nika as a character?
I want Nika the character. I want Nika to wake up or something.
That would be.
I would like that.
Right.
Because I like Nika. I wouldn't be upset if she came back.
I mean, if they wanted to lean into Andy becoming more of the hero, I get it. But I mean, Nika's too good to have an Alice type fate.
Yeah, it'd be nice if the two of them could kind of overthrow this Chucky cult, which seems, it's not just Chucky, it's Tiffany too.
Right, with the backseat reveal.
Yeah.
So they're both splitting up souls. And before we sort of wrap it up, I have a few stray thoughts that I just want to throw out there.
Sure.
We repeat the glass falling. There's been a lot of stabbings. Tiffany talks about how stabbings are so out of date. Let's try, with the pinhead and the nails.
Yeah.
But one thing that we really don't see for the Lakeshore Strangler is much strangling.
Yeah.
In 2, he throws the bag over
Greg German's head.
I mean, that's almost suffocation, not strangulation. And then we see that.
Even though he uses a jump rope too, though, doesn't he?
I don't remember. Oh no, his hands are bound behind him with a jump rope.
With a jump rope, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Alice's grandma again with the bag over her head. I think it's American Werewolf Simpson lady who it is implied she was strangled maybe in Child's Play 2.
Oh, right.
But anyway, it's just funny,
Yeah.
I'm also partial to names, so or terms, so like the Lakeshore Strangler, the Springwood Slasher, which even before Don Mancini ever said it, I always in my head wanted a Chucky versus Freddy movie, simply because a lot of the big icons don't lend themselves to being the main characters. They're too quiet, or they work like Pinhead works as a not much screen time. Mike Myers, Jason don't say anything. But here you have two guys who have mouthfuls of things to say.
Yeah.
And have you ever heard Don Mancini talk about a potential?
No, I have not.
Because he has talked about it. And it sounds superb. He's talked about how Chucky as a doll ends up in a house on Elm Street. And Freddy type things are happening. And Chucky is like, I'm an admirer. I know you. I'm a fan. And it starts up as a friendship. And Freddy, they become mutual friends and fans. And then it becomes
a competition.
Yeah, then it becomes, and then the friendship goes sour. But he's always said that as much as he would love to do it, Freddy's at New Line, Chucky's at Universal, it's not going to happen. But the fact that Mancini wants it to happen, that's a pairing.
Maybe we can get a comic, maybe a comic book.
I would love it. So Stray Thoughts.
Too.
Yes. I love the fact that I'm going back to Seed of Chucky, but when I remember saying, "Oh, I saw Seed of Chucky," and the people who hadn't even learned that the franchise had gone funny yet would say, "Oh, I don't just saw Seed of Chucky." Oh, I'm like, no, it's funny. You haven't seen Bride, and you haven't seen Seed, and John Waters is outside taking photos of the silhouette, and he thinks it's a dwarf. But my go-to, and I'm just sad I didn't mention this, but like I don't think you can be scared of Chucky, and I think you have to admit that this is a broad comedy now. You can't be afraid of Chucky when he's holding a cup of his own sperm. There's he's upstairs doing his thing, but when he comes down, he's like, "What's going on?" And they're holding the
what am I supposed to do with this?
I don't. That's my go-to for anyone who's like, "Well, I don't know what Child's Play." I'm like, jacks off. It's you. That was I don't want to say the turning point for me, but I mean, it really is hard to be. If horror is not your thing and comedy is your thing, I mean that tells you everything you need to know right there.
Right.
There's one bit in Cult that I'm always sensitive about how suicide is depicted in films. But the fact that Nika went that bit, and the fact that Chucky is such a prick,
I know,
that he wouldn't let it happen. But it breaks my heart that Nika got to that point.
Me too. When she finds out that Alice has died.
Yeah.
In a very awful way. Like Tiffany pulls no punches.
Yeah, she's an asshole about it. But
she even diagnoses it a broken heart. That's what she died of.
Which is very Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, Annie.
No, I gotta say for Curse, and I will also say it for Cult, but I felt it more for Curse. I will always have in the back of my head judgment about any straight-to-DVD movie. The way I remember the first straight-to-VHS movie I ever saw was Return of Jafar, and I remember being so shocked that it was like, oh, it's not film quality.
Yeah.
Oh, it's made by TV people, and so many movies that come straight to DVD or from a studio's straight to streaming or straight to DVD division. I usually expect a certain level of quality when they're like, "Oh, we're doing Death Race 2." Yeah, okay, and it doesn't have anyone. I remember being disappointed that in my brain there's a separation, and that Curse of Chucky was going straight to DVD, and I'm like, bummer.
Me too.
Should be, yeah. But then I watched it, and I'm like, this is the best straight to DVD movie I've ever seen. We're talking about all the strengths in the direction of the movie, and it's still to this day, I think, the best straight to DVD movie I've ever seen. But right behind it would be Cult. They're both. You don't see a lot of that with especially Universal straight to DVD output. I think there's like a Death Race 3, and
right,
franchising out. God, I can't remember now. But there was the Owen Wilson fighter pilot movie that they did with Fox, and they made 2 or 3 straight to DVDs of that, and the Howie Long fire. Yeah, I don't know. There's a history of cashing in on straight to DVD, and the one thing the Chucky movies did not do is just cash in.
Yeah,
I would argue they took big, bold swings and nailed both of them.
And really rare for a franchise to last this long and still kind of look backward and yet present things in a fresh, interesting, compelling way. Like, I'm trying to think of any other horror franchise that has lasted this long, or has had at least this many sequels, let's put it that way, and where you don't kind of lose the thread. And also the same creator, the same characters you loved. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to do without them for a while, but you know what? Now they're coming back, and in the series, I just hope it is Cameo City, or not even Cameo City. I don't want Cameo. I don't want people just dipping in hey, how you doing? I want to see, these are all capable people. I want to see them engage me further as these characters and interact with each other. And how are you now? What did you do after that movie? I want these questions answered, and oh my God, I
You're
can't
right.
wait.
Of all the franchises that have had this many films and this continuity, it's never this amount of time.
Yeah.
It's usually at some point we get a reboot or some reinterpretation or retcon or
Yeah, and even if it, I mean, I think about in terms of the again, keeping the thread. Like I liked the Halloween reboot a lot, actually, and I thought it got built up too much in terms of its hype, and everybody's declaring before they saw it, like, oh, it's going to be my favorite movie of 2018 or whatever. I just went in to go see a movie, and I liked it. And I thought it was one of the strongest sequels, but because people were expecting it to be the revolution, like they were dissatisfied because it was just a horror movie. That said, I liked it. I liked what it did with some characters who I cared about and introducing me to some other characters. But you abandon the entire thread, which had already happened, I understand, with this franchise. So that's kind of emblematic of that franchise. The fact that Chucky, there are inconsistencies here and there, but it feels like nitpicking. It doesn't feel like there's some overarching kind of like disqualifying detail that you're just like, that never happened before, that would never happen, you ruined the franchise. Maybe
Right.
for some people it has, but for me, I could watch any one of these movies and be happy and have a good time.
Any little choice or inconsistency is not enough for me to flip a table and say I'm over it. But
Exactly.
like, for example, like Tiffany gets pregnant and then she has a kid it's a voodoo pregnancy, hand wave.
Yep.
Okay. We get to Cult of Chucky, and Nika has not been able to walk since birth.
Yeah.
Yet she's able, I get the moment. She stands up, she's in the shoes, and it's Chucky's possessed her. But
Yeah.
you could also try to argue, but how would, even with Chucky in there, how would she be able to walk? And then you go, well, maybe voodoo. You have to hand wave it yourself. But that's not enough for me to be upset at the movie.
Yeah. No, and for some people that was like a big thing. They were just like, that's no, and some people even said it was disrespectful to people in wheelchairs and everything. And I was just like, wait a minute, okay. Tell me this. How often did the Chucky doll walk before he got inhabited or possessed by Chucky?
That's true.
By Charles Lee Ray. He couldn't move either. Maybe there's something about the voodoo curse that it just kind of like sends like an electricity through you, and all of a sudden you're mobile. Like that's what I thought from
Well,
the
we're
first
not upset about it. But to me, is even if I was, it's not enough. It's not enough.
Yeah, no, of course. But there were some people, some nitpickers and naysayers of the entire franchise who missed who missed Curse and didn't like Seed and watched Cult, or even watched them all, but don't love this franchise the way you and I do. Yeah. And so they just kind of go, I don't understand anything that's happening. And it's like, well, you know what? That's not the movie's fault. We're at episode 7 now at this point. Maybe you need to hold on. If you want to, there are other franchises that like let go of things and like reinvent themselves, like 7 movies in or whatever. Watch those movies. Those are fine too.
And also, even within this franchise, you could come into 4 and just enjoy 4. You could come into Curse and just enjoy Curse. But I mean, this one really is. I don't have an example, but you can't just dive right on in.
It's like Infinity War and Endgame.
I was about to say it was about like Endgame. Endgame doesn't. Avengers 1 catches you up on who Loki is and who Thor is and who Captain is.
You can just watch that movie.
Endgame does not, and this one does not.
Yeah, actually, I think Cult is more like Infinity War because of the way it ends. It doesn't quite. But this is an example of it not quite ending, and I'm just like, I need to know what happens. That's why it's Infinity War.
Before you wrap up, I just want to know: have you ever read the log line of what the show is supposed to be about?
No.
Are you interested?
Yes, please.
Okay, so spoilers out there, not like it's juicy, but spoilers for anyone out there who doesn't know and doesn't want to know what the premise of the Chucky show is, which I have to wonder. It was supposed to come out this October, but it's clearly not because
COVID-19.
But the log line is, after a vintage Chucky doll turns up at a suburban yard sale, an idyllic American town is thrown into chaos after a series of horrifying murders begin to expose the town's hypocrisies and secrets. Meanwhile, the arrival of enemies and allies from Chucky's past threaten to expose the truth behind the killings. as well as the doll's untold origins as a seemingly ordinary child who somehow became a notorious monster. What I get from this is that we're going to be sending the doll again to a neighborhood, which I feel like we're going to find out this is the neighborhood that Charles Lee Ray grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I never needed that origin, and even though it sounds like with enemies and allies, I feel like Kyle's going to show up, Andy's going to show up, Nika's going to be involved. But I feel like they're also, much like the last two movies, we're going to dig a little more into what made him him.
Charles Lee Ray, the boy.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know if we'll get
That'd be
flashbacks
nice.
or what, but my supreme wish, because you can tell whatever you want about the origin of Charles Lee Ray.
Yeah.
You can tell me, you can bring in new Tiffany dolls and Jennifer Tilly and more Chucky dolls. I need to see some Kyle and Andy action. And if we could make references to his mom, or even have his mom show up, or make reference to Chris Sarandon. I don't even need to have a minute. Make reference to him, and I want references to Glenn or Glenda.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting everyone to show up, but it would be cool.
I'd be fine if Jade doesn't show up. Then again, if she did, I'd be down for it. I'd be like, well, what's she been up to? Don't call him a midget. Jade.
All right.
Awful person. All right, so rankings.
Let's wrap this up with rankings.
Okay, with maybe like a sentence per
a mild explanation, because we have definitely gone over 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Whoever's still watching, my God, I love you.
It must be hard up for entertainment out here in the quarantine,
Yeah, but you know what? Thank you for sharing this with us.
Honestly, yeah. Thank you for your time, people.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go my 7, your 7, my 6, your 6?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, no, I want to hear yours first.
Oh, okay. So my 7, it's kind of obvious. Child's Play 3.
Me too.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's the most flawed. It's the one with the least heart. I still like that I can attach to the beginning, and that Justin Whalen does a good job. I don't hate it. I don't hate any of these movies, but it's just the weakest entry.
Mm-hmm. It lacks the magic sauce.
Yes. So number 6. This was hard. Number 6, Child's Play 2.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Why you?
Because for a long time, there was a period where I was bride and seed guy. Mm-hmm. And as I got a little bit more, I've really come to appreciate Child's Play 1. And as much as I love Bride, it's just a matter of ranking. Like, I'm not going to give you the numbers, but I just like Bride and Curse and Seed and Cult more. And 2 has strengths. 2, I still miss the mystery and the learning of 1, but 2 puts Andy in a very interesting place, and the fact that Chucky's messing with him in this foster home and potentially.
Yeah.
But no offense to 2. Like, 2 would be higher if these other movies didn't exist. This is why this list was so hard.
Yeah.
Because it being in 6th place is not an indication of its quality, because it's
no,
more
not at all.
Of the quality of the entire rest of the series.
I mean, also for me,
I don't like
ride.
seeing it at 2.
Right.
Or I don't like seeing it at 6th.
At 6. No, I mean, that's why, I mean, the rank is the challenge. But I feel like with 2, I mean, it's all about the ride for me. And the thing about the ride is that I do have to watch Andy deal with a lot of neglect and stupidity at the hands of the Simpsons. So it's like, well, if we're talking about either or, I still love watching it. But yeah, Child's Play 2, like, look at that. But I mean, we sang its praises. I mean, we talked through it, so you've heard what I love about it, and you know that, but it's just about the Simpsons suck hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So number 5. This was a surprise. This was actually one that moved from my original ranking before I rewatched them, when I just thought, this is probably what it is. My number 5 is Bride of Chucky.
Oh.
A sentence why? Yeah, I know.
Well, my number again it moved. This one moved a little bit too, but my number 5 is Seed. And I love Seed. I love Seed.
I know you do. Bride
That's how
just
good
moved.
this franchise is, though.
Yeah, no, Bride was high for me because I loved the production design and I love Jennifer Tilly, and I love the interaction with Brad Dourif and all those tenets. That's why it was that high. It used to be higher for me. The reason it dropped is because Jade and Jesse, while I like the parallel of the couples that I discovered, whether it's earned or not, I feel like it's earned. I'm willing to give Don Mancini that kind of faith. That said, spending time with them, it's still frustrating. Again, sitting there for a movie, watching frustrating characters interact with frustrating characters, and not getting to care about them as much as I cared about other people. The time I'm spending, that's the only reason it dropped.
The only reason 5 is where it's at for me, or Seed is where it's at 5th place, is just because as the franchise has continued past it, it becomes more of a tonal anomaly. And even though I adore it, the franchise has kind of created what, even within the variances, it's created something that it sticks out more.
Interesting. Yeah. This is fun. Okay.
What's
Number four is, and this Rose, is Curse of Chucky. Because I had it lower. I actually used to have it at 5 because I just didn't watch it that much. And I mistakenly kind of assumed that because I wasn't watching it that much, maybe it meant that I didn't love it as much. But I think it's because it's so good. It's I don't want to get used to it. You know, it's late enough in the series that like I haven't watched the shit out of it, so I can recognize things from memory. But at the same time, I don't want to ruin it for me. I don't want it to become kind of second nature. Yeah.
There's certain movies I love, but you've seen them like hundreds of times, and whereas this, I busted out every few years, so it still retains a little bit of freshness every time.
Yeah, there's room for surprise, and again, like I forgot that I didn't remember the snow never registered for me, and then I was just kind of like, snow, I wonder what that's about. So yeah.
My number 4 is Cult.
Wow.
Yeah, and
okay.
I know you love Cult, and this is the my 2, 3, 4, and 5 spots. They were very frustrating to try to rank these.
Yeah.
I mean, see, when you cite why yours are in a certain spot, you cite at least some sort of negative thing that justifies their placement. Whereas it just comes down to a simple thing of like, I just like the one above it a little more.
Understood.
Yeah, I adore Cult. There's just elements to say Curse that just register for me a little more.
Okay, nice. We're on 3?
3.
Okay, my 3 is Child's Play.
Wow.
Yeah. It was hard because I adore it. I think it's made expertly, especially rewatching it today. And I watched it with 2 commentaries. So I've really watched it 3 times or in the last couple of days, 3 times. And I love the way it's put together and everything like that. Again, this is not about a negative thing. We're at a point where it's like, there's not really anything negative I can say. It's just about how I'm spending my time and what I'm offered and how much it gives me. And it gives me a lot. I mean, like I said, I don't hate any of these movies. Love all of them. It's just 3. Child's Play is just 3. You?
I understand exactly what you mean. My number 3 is Curse.
Really?
Yeah. This is somewhere where I feel like the rankings changed. I had a really hard time between, well, I won't say, but as someone who entered with, my heart took off with Bride, and Bride has been towards the top for a while. I mean, Curse instantly, when I first saw it, became one of my favorites. And over the years, every time I revisit, I'm like, yep, no, I'm not crazy. This really is up in, it's going to be in the top 3. Curse just really delivers, man. I really respect. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. 2. Seed of Chucky, because I went the other direction with Seed. I liked it so much that I just kept watching it, and I kept watching it. and yet it hasn't been done to death for me. And I wondered, rewatching it this time for this pod, I was like, maybe I will find out I don't like it as much as I do. And there just kept being exquisite examples of what makes me love just the franchise in general. And I was so proud of Don Mancini in his first time out as director to aim for the fences the way he did. And I mean the way he did in terms of making a movie that when I was a kid, I would have wondered, how did this ever get made? Who thought this was a good idea? You know, because it's a great idea, but I think I'm the only one who thinks that. And aside from you, I think we're some of the only people who think that. But Seed it's my number 2. And Jennifer Tilly across the board too.
And I will agree with you. In general, with movies, I love when I call them, it's a big swing. Even when the big swings are a whiff and they miss, I usually find that at least they tried, and a fascinating train wreck. I will always adore a big swing versus something that plays it really safe. When a big swing, and to me, Seed is a big swing that connects. You know what I mean? My number 2 is Bride, and I really had a hard time with my 2 and 3 with Bride and Curse. If you'd asked me this before Curse ever came out, my top 2 were always Bride and Seed, or Seed and Bride. Bride and Seed, or Seed and Bride. There's a lot of strengths to both of them, but Curse really rose up. And even between Bride and Seed, I wouldn't go as far as to say Lightning in a Bottle, because that's kind of reserved for really landmark moments in cinema, you know. But you know, getting Aykroyd and Ramis and Bill Murray for Ghostbusters, that's lightning in a bottle that, you know, can't be replicated. You know, the editing Star Wars to a finished version of Star Wars that delivers something we've never seen before. It's lightning in a bottle. But within this franchise, Bride, for the 4th movie, really did feel like something fresh and felt like a novel idea, but all these years later feels like not novel. It just feels comforting. Like, of course we'd have Jennifer Tilly and Chucky with stitches on his face, and it's a road trip, and it's a marriage comedy, and I think what is sublime, even as far as the big swing of Seed, we don't get to Seed without the steps that Bride took, and it's comforting, and the relationships start there. I could watch Bride over and over and over again.
I do.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, and I oh yeah. Okay, so number 1, I mean, you've already kind of mentioned, but yeah, it's Cult. And this is the only reason I hesitated for so long to actually even try and rank these, because I was convinced after I saw Cult that it was my favorite the first time I saw it. So much so that I had the day off, I watched it, and I immediately watched it again. Just because
I watched it twice on the same day too.
Yeah, I just kind of needed to wrap my head around it and tell myself, no, this is real. And I wanted to remember it. That was the weird thing. I wanted to remember how much I loved watching it, which is rare for movies, especially movies nowadays. It says something about the way a movie resonates with me. If I immediately after watching it want to watch it again, because I have old movies that I love that I can do that with. But this was a new one. And for a long time I thought, maybe it's just because it's new. Maybe I should wait it out. And now I realized it's been out 3 years now. So I was like, oh, okay. And I watched it again, and it's just everything.
It's not just the new car smell anymore. It's
no, it is literally everything. And again, Seed was similar. I watch it and I feel like it was made just for me. And that is so rare. That is so rare. And it nails everything. There's only one, I think, complaint I have about the whole movie, and it's a moment that I just kind of go, and it's just the big nightmare Chucky.
The super giant one.
Yeah, and everything that leads up to it, I'm totally fine with her like reaching for Alice, and the shadow, even his shadow stalking her from behind. But then you see it's a giant shaky Chucky behind her screaming, and I'm like, what's happening? But that is literally like what, 3-4 seconds out of the movie. The rest of it, I love it.
Yeah,
I love
I
every.
definitely love that it's more than just a sum of its fan service. So I mean, I agree with
Yeah.
you. And even though I have it at fourth, I adore it.
Hmm.
My number one, if you haven't figured out already, is Child's Play.
Yeah.
Just old fashioned number one, which never would have been a thing up until a few years ago. But I've really, for the longest time, Bride and Seed were up there, and even with Bride and Seed and Curse, like those are like my big three.
Hmm.
Um, but I saw Child's Play at the Frida Cinema a few years ago, actually, and I with actually no, never mind. That's a different screening. I saw Fright Night, and Tom Holland was there, but I saw they did one night only with Child's Play there, and it's something about seeing it in a theater.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no matter what kind of movie it is, everything benefits from being you and the screen, and there's no bookshelves nearby, and there's no window, there's no car driving by, there's no phone ringing, there's no one popping in to ask you. You don't stop and check your phone. It's
You can't pause to take a leak.
correct,
Like, yeah.
and the story is so simple, but it's so pure and it's so perfectly told, and it's so straightforward. It's not just that you
Hmm.
don't get the franchise without it, but as far as just I don't know screenplay, as far as screenwriting
Hmm.
101, as far as your building blocks of a story,
Hmm.
there are things about two that I like, but as far as you're fresh, here's your hero, here's your cop. That movie is tight. It is
Hmm.
perfectly well executed. It is the most straightforward, legitimate. I don't want to say like normal movie, but I mean there is something as you get to the sillier ones that I really respect.
Yeah.
Just how serious they took it and how much they got right the first time out.
Hmm.
The technical
I tend to
ingenuity
call.
from the 80s,
Absolutely.
I honestly, it's just a movie that I've grown to appreciate as a movie nerd over the
Yeah.
years, over the last few years, so much that it
Yeah.
exceeded Bride. It reached that point, like where it's just Back to the Future 1, where like, people can debate like, oh, 2 is fun and 3 is this one. Like, yeah, but what do you like besides Back to the Future 1? Because to me, it's ranking the other two. And now I've reached a point where like, you can rank all the sequels, but they don't touch that first Child's Play. You can rank all the other
Mm.
Bonds, but it's who are your favorite Bond behind Sean Connery. Child's Play 1 entered the what do you like besides Child's Play 1.
Nice. Okay. I tend to call bullshit also on the whole likable character thing. Like whenever producers or um, just film companies still, they seem to be like studios tend to be like obsessed with like making characters likable so people will
Mhm.
want to watch the movie. And yet look at what caused my rankings. But
Yeah.
it really brought it to light though when I was watching the Child's Play reboot how much I adore the first one, because I really didn't care what happened to most of the people in that movie. And it made me realize I care so much about that boy and his mom and Aunt Maggie and even Detective Mikey. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't laugh at the kills. They land. The only reason it's not at the top of mine is because I think the weirdness is very special to me. And the weirdness of Seed and the weirdness of Cult, the singularity, the fact that there's no kind of Seed of Chucky equivalent that I can readily identify in other
Absolutely.
franchises. And the same thing with Cult. I mean, it's like I said, Avengers of Infinity War. It's that level of greatness in my eyes. So, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
Seed definitely joins to me. There's a series of sequels that I just like you. I've wondered how the fuck did this get made? Like who greenlit this? And some of my favorite movies are those sequels. Gremlins 2, Bill and Ted's
Mm,
Bogus Journey. When the sequel goes, let's go even daffier,
mm-hmm.
and somehow people go, okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
their doppelgangers come and then they die and go to hell, and then they make good robots, and they, sure, sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah. They have a Chucky's jacking off into turkey baster, and yeah, go make it. Here's millions of dollars to make John Waters watching Chucky jerk off.
He's so legitimately scared in that moment too. I just love it. He's just got that little, face like
Hmm.
There's no, again, people saying campy. It's like, no, John Waters looks scared. He knows what camp is.
Yes.
Anyway.
So it is very late. It's been
Yes, it is.
very fun having you here, but I think I think people watching this might have noticed my eyes becoming pinker as the video.
Me too, probably, yeah.
But thank you for joining me.
No problem.
It has
Thank
been a
you for
blasty
inviting
blast.
me. This was great. We got to do it again.
Oh, we got to do it again.
Mhm.
For people who were interested in seeing us do this again, we want to do a breakdown of the Paranormal Activity franchise.
Mhm.
I think we'll try to keep that. I think we have less to say emotionally than we do about that franchise than we do this one. So I promise
I'm nowhere near as passionate about the Paranormal Activity movies as I am about these. I like them though. We'll talk about that, but
Yeah.
it's not. There's not going to be. I don't think
However,
there's as much to delve
I
through
think going
there.
forward, people can expect these to be shorter.
Yes.
But
This was
for those of you
maiden
that have
voyage.
joined us and and stuck around through all of it, I don't know who's out there that's watched all, like, will probably be 4 hours and 15 minutes of us doing this.
Yeah, maybe they're cleaning the house, doing laundry, washing dishes. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, we will be doing more of these. Hopefully people out there who are bored during the quarantine will find something to enjoy about this. But I've enjoyed being here with you. If anyone out there has any suggestions about things, subjects, franchises, singular movies that you think you'd want to hear our thoughts on, you're welcome to leave them in the comments below. We'll check them out.
Yeah, and maybe let us know how deep a dive you'd like.
Yeah, if anything, besides the Paranormal franchise, I'd be more interested in doing a singular movie, because Lord knows if you've watched this, you know how long we can talk just about one movie.
Right.
So
absolutely, particularly a movie we might be passionate about. If you happen to recommend one, I mean, if you heard us mention any in these videos, and you want to hear us talk about those more, because we reached out to other franchises a lot.
And we love to just sit around and talk movies. So we're just doing that again during stay at home and letting you all just sort of hang out with us.
Yeah.
Eddie, where can they find you, like on Twitter or anything?
Don't bother with Twitter. Just go to Instagram. Yeah, just go to Instagram. That's the only thing I visit regularly, and the handle is Edward is Truth, all one word. Yeah, you'll find me there. I have other rankings that I've already put there.
That's what kind of kicked this off.
Yeah. Actually, there's a spoiler there for the Paranormal Activity ranking, but it might change. My Chucky ranking changed, so who knows? Yeah. But if you're interested in seeing what my paranormal ranking was, I may, after this has been up for a while, I may post my Chucky ranking. And yeah, but look for me on Instagram because that's where I am the most. So what about you?
Oh, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I'm all John Carlos McMaster, and on Twitter, I'm JC McMaster. And I'll have the links in the description of this video. I'll have your Instagram in the description of this video.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so once again, thank you, Eddie, for joining me.
And thank you for naming me, so I know you're thanking me.
And if anyone out there watched this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, all of it, thank you for giving me your time. That's nice of you.
We like it. We like having you.
We
like having you listen to us go on and on and on about this. All right, until next time. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.